something that everybody in the world, everybody that knows the trends, global trend, is conversant with climate change and tourism. Those are two big factors. Everybody talks about it. If you're not talking about it, it means that you are not up to date. You are not woke, right? If you consider yourself woke, let me use that Nigerian lingo. If you think that you are woke, you're up to date, you're educated, then you should prepare your mind to get immersed in the world of tourism and climate change. I remember some weeks ago we talked about what they call the Anthropocene. Yeah, the Anthropocene. That's the concept. Simply means the activities of man having, a corrosive impact on Mother Earth. That's the depletion of the ozone layer. You could Google it, you know. Yeah. So today we're talking about climate change, global warming, etc. I mean, it's quite deep, very, very deep. But my happiness is that we have competent people and we have competent moderators to help us excavate and unearth all the nuances and intricacies of the topic. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to waste much of your time. I'll just go into introduction, then leave the rest to the moderator, our able moderator, to handle. I think the moderator should do the introduction, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just going to introduce the moderator. I'd like to welcome someone quite familiar. See, the way I'm looking at this direction, somebody knows the person is going to come from these three persons. Okay, yeah, you might just be right. So, yeah, this person is quite verse, is octopusal. That's where I coined that word, like an octopus, right? An octopus has so many tentacles. So this man has his tentacles spread across the nooks and crannies. I'm not just in the creative ecosystem, even in politics, and even in creative writing. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the one and only A.A. Anote Ajeloro.
Are you sure it was me you were describing? I can't see my octopal. Good afternoon, my people. It's been great. He has said most of this stuff. This is the 27th edition of Lagos Book and Art Festival, and we're here. We've been here since Monday, celebrating books, celebrating creativity, celebrating culture, and those who make it. And you are right here in the right place. And this moment, we'll be talking about the nexus between culture, tourism, climate change, and how these help us to look at where we are today in the global scheme of things. And those who will help us to navigate this particularly interesting conversation are here with us. Two internationalists, three internationalists, four internationalists, and four local. Because what is local, unarguably, is also global. All right? So let me start with the ladies. I have here with me Mrs. Yetunde Asika. Don't be worried. Their resumes will be properly read once they sit down. Please. Yes. Let's welcome them with a round of applause. Choose your seat anywhere. Great. And then we also have here in our midst one I call Lady Josephine Uba. Please come up. Thank you. Thank you. We have one of us online who couldn't be here because of a few things. No, we don't need beside this. She is somewhere in Edo State, in a community called Ososo Kingdom. She is Mrs. Rebecca Obaiton.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
If we could have her image on the screen, that would be fantastic. Okay, why should, okay, yeah, she's online there. You can see her.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I'm honored to be
Also
here.
have from Manchester, like he's been introduced before, a man I have actually rechristened, um, which anytime I say it, he just chuckles and looks at me. Dr. Carl Life. He's Dr. Carl Death, yes, but for me, it's life. I mean, yes, yes, thank you. Okay. Um, I think if you could help us remove this chair. Yes, please. So we go with so sorry. We have our Chinelo. Is Chinelo ready to do us? Okay, great. Do us the honor, Mr.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly read a brief bio of the amazing panelists we have here today. I'll start with Yetunde Asika. Of course, most of us here are familiar with the name Asika. Yetunde Asika, Mrs. Asika, is the Chief Operating Officer of African Leadership Council, an exclusive network of Africa's most outstanding leaders from various sectors, including political, business, and thought leaders, policy titans, entrepreneurs, and executives. She is an accomplished consultant in strategy and governance and a driven senior executive with more than 20 years of experience working with both the private and public sectors. Mrs. Asika drives her current advocacy work for Pan-African social justice and climate change as the co-chair of Bandung Africa. Notably, her passion for empowering women has been evident in her work with Ajoba Development Foundation, ADF, an NGO she founded to drive a grain skills and gender balance revolution. Beyond her professional accomplishments, Mrs. Asika is a passionate and dedicated mother. First, an adventurous sports enthusiast, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and an avid traveler with deep roots in arts and culture. Mrs. Asika is both an Igbo and Yoruba chief, and she will celebrate an impressive 11 years this year as an Kwesili of the ancient Otu Odu Society of Onitsha. Mrs. Asika is also Oloye Otun Iyalode of Orile Ilawo, Ogun State. The highest female title that can be held by any woman in Egba and Yoruba land. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Yetunde Asika. Chief. Yes, Chief. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that correction, taking that. Could you project, okay, let me take the second person very quickly. Yes, I think we can hear Olori, we can hear Mrs. Obaiton very well. I'll be reading the profile of Mrs. Obaiton right away. Mrs. Rebecca Obaiton is a member of the Royal Obaiton family of Ososo, Akoko Edo, Edo State, Nigeria. Wholly regarded as the matriarch of modern Ososo, Rebecca is passionate about driving the rising of a kingdom and introducing Ososo to the world. She champions tourism, culture, and strategic partnerships to position Ososo as a hub of growth and unity. A graduate of Canisius College, Buffalo, New York, with a BSc in exercise science. She has held professional certifications with the American College of Sports Medicine, ACSM, ACE, personal training, and as a professional project manager, PPM. Mrs. Obaiton trained as a model with Barbizon USA, blending elegance with leadership. With over 25 years of experience across health, fitness, and beauty, from training athletes in the US to consulting for Nigerian health centers. She has also led businesses in fitness, beauty, and wellness. Today, Mrs. Obaiton serves on the board of Transbridge Integrated Industries and as part of the Nigerian American Business Forum, supporting youth, businesses, and private sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Obaiton. Let's make welcome Ms. Obaiton officially.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Did you share with me? Okay. I'm going to read that of Mrs. Josephine Uba. Josephine Uba is a humanitarian journalist and an environmentalist. She is the co-founder of 1 Million Tree Initiative, a social enterprise created to address the challenges of desertification and seek ways to mitigate the impact of climate change. The group engages in advocacy to save Earth and work passionately to preserve the ecosystem by planting trees in various Nigerian communities and schools. Since inception in 2021, the organization has planted trees, engaged in advocacy programs in many schools and communities in partnership with corporate bodies. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Josephine Uba in our midst. Could you project that of Dr. Okade? So let me read that very quickly before we proceed. I'll hand over the microphone to our able moderator. Could you do that? Okay. Okay, just magnify it so I can see it. I'm getting old now, so yeah, thank you very much. This is wonderful. Dr. Carl Dett, with call interest in literature on post-colonialism and post-structuralism, summit diplomacy and the symbolic and theater dimensions of power. Carl's research is located at the intersection of three fields: African politics and development, particularly post-apartheid South Africa, environmental politics and sustainable development, and critical theories. Dett is a convener of the Africa and International Studies Working Group, and an associate editor of the Journal International Relations. He joined the University of Manchester in August 2013 as a senior lecturer in international political economy. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Carl Dett. I will now honorably hand over to our moderator to take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Osaze also. Okay, this is a panel on tourism, on climate change. And we want to wonder what is the connection between tourism and climate change. The session is organized by Let Earth Breathe, an NGO that works in the area of conserving the environment, activism using art to advocate for a responsible relationship between man and nature, so that our climate becomes comfortable for us to live in, so we don't expand the hole supposedly in the ozone layer. So that is what we do, and this is a partnership with, of course, Lagos Book and Art Festival. And here we have resource persons who are doing an amazing things in their own respective fields in the area of curtailing the way we relate with the environment in a responsible way, so that we leave a viable earth for those who are coming before us. So I will start with Dr. Carl, so he could tell us what his work in the area of environment and politics, what they have to do with how the global powers at the moment, I mean, COP30, COP30, is almost here with us. We've had several, and then they come up with resolutions, with conventions. Some people, I mean, for instance, our own, our Mr. Trump doesn't believe, in whatever efforts being made to conserve the environment. He actually calls the climate change thing is scam. So how will you respond to a thing like that, while also enlightening us on what to do in the area of the environment and conservatism?
Thank you very much. Thanks for the welcome and the introduction. It's been a wonderful week so far being here at Labatt. Thank you all for coming along to listen to what we have to say today, and hopefully we'll have a really good discussion. I'm not going to say much about climate change and tourism, but I absolutely, my research is essentially concerned with how you described the work of Let the Earth Breathe and the role of art in encouraging a more responsible relationship between people and nature. So I teach in an international politics department in the University of Manchester. I work on global climate change politics and negotiations, which does include COP summits. But I actually wanted to talk today about my latest piece of research, which is a book that I've written called African Climate Futures. I'm quite old-fashioned, so I have printed out flyers. I'm going to put them down here, partly because please don't ever try and buy a copy of the book. The first chapter is available to download for free. There's a link on there, so if you're interested, please take one of those afterwards and you can download the first chapter. If you are interested in my research, then with my name, Dr. Carl Deft, you can easily find me online through Google, and some of my articles are also freely available to download. So this book, African Climate Futures, is about how we might imagine what living in a future changed by the climate is going to be. How can we imagine what the future will be like as the world either adapts or doesn't adapt to climate change, and what are some of the politics and the power relations that shapes how we imagine the future? Because I think if you, my perspective coming from the global north, from the UK, and if you go to the COP conferences, which are still dominated by Europe and North America and the so-called developed world of the global north, these meetings will be full of visions of the future. They often end up focusing on what New York will be like after climate change, or what London or Amsterdam will be like, or there'll be a lot of images or discussion of melting polar ice caps. My observation is that in those settings, there is very little space for or experience of perspectives from the global south. And in particular, African perspectives on the future tend to be quite marginalized. In fact, I would say that for many in the global north, there is an assumption that Africa is somehow emblematic of the past, not the future. In some ways, Africa stands as a warning of what the rest of the world might, if it fails to adapt to climate change, the future of the rest of the world could be like Africa's present now. And I think this is deeply problematic, and it ignores and marginalizes the diverse and plural ways in which African futures are being imagined by creatives and also activists and politicians. And so the book is an attempt to look at two ways in which climate futures are being imagined in Africa. One, through political strategies. Many governments do have strategies for low carbon development or net zero development. Nigeria has its own long-term strategy for low carbon development, which you may or may not be aware of. We could have a debate about what these things mean, whether they have any chance of ever being implemented, whether anyone ever reads them. The book makes the argument that these strategies from all over the world, actually, not just the ones African strategies that I've looked at, they're dry and technocratic. They don't help us imagine what it might be like to live in a climate changed future. And so in order to try to open up some perspectives on how we might imagine the future, the book turns to fiction, novels, short stories, films, set in and written by African authors to look at some of the ways in which African futures have been imagined in the creative industries and how these can challenge some of the limitations of the political strategies that governments might put together, but don't seem to me to address some of the real questions of power and inequality or give us much of a chance to imagine what it actually might be like to experience climate change.
I think this is quite eye-opening because, I mean, usually when talk about the world, when people from the global north talk about the world, Africa is not usually in the picture. You know, looking at North America, Europe, maybe some parts of Asia who they grudgingly, accept into the fold. But Africa isn't usually in the narrative, and it's quite um, great that someone who recognizes this from the global north is talking about Africa, Africa's future in terms of, climate change. I don't really want like you to be saying that, we should try to buy a book. I mean, I would like to read the entire book more than the first chapter, even if, uh, I know you've been,
Encourage the library to buy the book.
oh, okay. Ah, okay. I'm sure you will have a thing to say about that proposition. Okay. Yes. So I know that there's something in the Nigerian government circle called the Green World. I haven't quite researched too deeply into it to understand it, what it is, but I think uh, probably it's the effort to, in response to the climate change thing and maybe what they could possibly do. And here we have the Josephine Uba who runs the 1 million trees. How does that fit into I don't know if you know anything about the green world that Nigerian government, runs, but could you tell us a little bit what you do with the 1 million trees and how it probably fits into this green world?
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for coming around. Um, yeah, sometimes we dwell so much on um, big grammar. We dwell so much on um, things we can't actually explain. But I can tell you that the green world, as the government will say, is all about living sustainably, living a sustainable lifestyle, um, adopting sustainable practices that will help us to mitigate the impact of climate change and then help us to live a greener life. And in that manner, it has economic benefits, it has environmental benefits, it has all the benefits that are accruable to healthy lifestyle. Be that as it may, I want to go back to where you started from. I'm not digressing, but I think it's the crux of why we're here. Tourism and climate change. I want to go back a little bit to give us a background to the connection between tourism and climate change. Yeah, much as tourism has its own economic benefits, by helping to promote and then promote activities that are environmentally friendly to communities and societies. It also has its own dark side, when it comes to the carbon footprints. They are also responsible for most of the emissions, gas emissions, greenhouse emissions that we're talking about. So when you talk about tourism and climate change, it has a dual issue. It's dual issue. And I would say that is double-edged because this way it contributes to economic benefits by helping to promote activities that are good for the community environmentally. And as well, on the other side, they are also responsible for most of the emissions because when you talk of emissions, you see that most of the airplanes and the aircrafts and activities of tourists and tourism, they are largely responsible for the emissions that we are talking about. That is one. And so for what I do in 1 Million Tree Initiative, we are into environmental preservation, environmental conservation and then we primarily plant trees. And we have planted trees in majorly cities, various cities and communities in Nigeria, in schools and in communities. And we have planted well over 66,000 trees in the last 5 years. Wow. We have planted in Lagos, we have planted in Port Harcourt, we have planted in Warri. I was discussing a while ago with Rookie. We planted in conjunction with most corporate bodies. I want to say that Rotary Club International has been very much beside us in the last 5 years. And so why we are planting these trees is that, like I have always told people, climate change is, in spite of the denial, yeah, you talked about some people who are denying that climate change is not real. It is real, because even right here where we are, when the rain opens up, like Bob Marley will say, when it rains, it doesn't rain on one man's roof. It rains everywhere. It falls on every man's roof. And then the flooding that has become prevalent in the last couple of years, we haven't had it like that before. Even wildfires and various types of illnesses that we have never seen before, they are part of what the climate change has brought to us. So what we are doing is that, because trees are the lungs of the earth, and their benefits are immense, that is why we have decided that you don't talk about trees, you don't plant trees, then what are you doing? So that's where I will leave it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give it up to her, please. Thank you. Thank you. Trees are the lungs of the earth. Can you imagine you not having lungs? I mean, you're as good as dead. So we need to plant trees wherever we can. Although there's something she said earlier that I would like our panel member online, Mrs. Byton, to speak to. But before I go to her, I would like the tech people to cue a video that will precede her intervention. So in the meantime, let's turn to Chief Asika. Thank you, sir. Do you think government is doing enough? And how does your organizations, two of them, the Bandung Africa and Ayoba Foundation, what do they do? What sort of intervention do they make in the area of environmental sustainability?
Well, Nigeria has made real strides in environmental policy and awareness. For example, our update climate commitments, it aims to cut emissions by 32% by 2035 and achieve net zero by 2060. And the new roadmap requiring companies to disclose climate-related risks by 2027 is another important step that we've done. But there's still a big gap between policy on paper and impact on the ground. So if you look at the initiatives like the National Renewable Energy Master Plan and the Great Green Wall Project, for example, this shows real progress, and it shows long-term vision as well. But we now need to connect that policy momentum with supporting local innovation and ventures that create rural jobs, and equipping young people with climate-smart skills. Ultimately, the focus must be on linking funding and community leadership so that this progress becomes tangible and lasting. So you have organizations like, the Million Tree Foundation, what was the name of the 1 Million Trees initiatives, and I spoke to Mrs. Uba earlier, and she spoke of the difficulties that they have had, especially in the first 3 years of getting anything done. No funding, and then by the time you do get some funding, you feel like a beggar. And I resonate I know what she's talking about. I feel exactly the same thing with my organizations. So you can have all these policies that governments in Nigeria is doing, the government's putting into place, which is great on paper. When it comes down to it, is it really working? You have to fund organizations that get to the heart of it, the root communities. You have to like support these policies with funding and things that can actually work, and involve community leaders, involve the community. At our Joba Development Foundation, we always involve women in everything that we do. We empower women, and so involve the women in the communities. Women are custodians of the earth. We are the ones that care really deeply about what's happening to our planet, our children's future. So you've got to make women the face of climate action. But at the root of it is just about funding and involving the communities to make it work. So government policy is great, and we have made strides, but it's not the end game. We haven't, we need to do more than just policies. Government has to support, foundations like mine and like the 1 Million Tree Foundation.
So sorry, before we leave that point, why is it so hard to assess government's support in these initiatives? Which, I mean, they spend a lot of money as tacos going abroad for COP, whatever, all right? And then they come home here, you have the Great Green Wall, and then it's difficult for people to assess those structures they put in place to mitigate these same problems. Why is that?
That's the $1 million question. I mean, I would like to know why it's so difficult myself. I was also explaining to Mrs. Uba earlier today, because she was asking about Bandung, Africa, where we're based, and our major office is in Nairobi. Our headquarters in Nairobi. And she was asking, well, why? Why Nairobi? Why not Nigeria? I said, we have offices here. But the honest truth is that I find it easier to get a lot more done over there in East Africa for some reason. And she was explaining that she doesn't know why either, but here, I'm going to speak of Nigeria. It's difficult for whatever reason. I cannot tell you what the reason is. But I think it's a mindset thing. It's not just the government. It also runs through the people, because we find that when we go into communities, we first need to educate them, embedding environmental literacy into these communities first, before you can do anything else, because people are thinking about what is going to bring them economic gain for themselves and their family. They're thinking about, what am I going to eat today? What am I eating tomorrow? Why am I thinking about climate change? So it's a mindset that needs to be changed from government to trickle down to everybody else. It's not just the government that have this issue. I think it's all of us. And once we can educate ourselves, which is what we do a lot, is advocacy and awareness on climate change, then that's the beginning, and perhaps we'll get more help then.
Okay. Well, of course, I mean, you're doing what you're doing. Ordinarily, I mean, the National Accreditation Agency ought to be doing some of the work you are doing, and she is also doing, I mean, by enlightening the people, getting them enlightened about environmental sustainability and the part that they should play also in doing so. But we know the country we have. Anyway, Tech, is our video ready? Please play it before we go to Mrs. Sobayton, so.
Chinese Communist Party, or you will be zoomed down every single day. Shut down the meeting now. Shut down the meeting now. Shut down the fucking meeting now. Shut down the meeting now. You fucking niggers. Fucking niggers and Jews and glory to now.
Somebody invaded our space. It looks like. Okay, can we still have Sobayton online now? Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Sobaito?
Can you hear me? I'm here.
Oh,
And I can
great.
assure you that was not the video that I sent in.
Thank you. I think some funny, crazy people have. Okay, can we still go?
JCB DJ के सामने दिखाई जाए साउंड टेस्टिंग
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Are you able to hear me now?
Hello, are you there? Mr. Python, please, can you hear us? Maybe, yeah, okay. Exactly. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. It's very low, but I can hear you again. Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I regret that I'm not there in person, but I'm honored to share the stage today with change makers and innovators and people that are concerned with climate. I just wanted to share the few pictures, the loop with you so you understand why for our kingdom, tourism and sustainability through nature is so important to me.
Okay, so we just saw the video about your community in Edo State also, and we saw how picturesque it actually is.
Exactly.
What sort of intervention did you make to green the environment that we just saw, and how is that possibly helping tourism in the community?
Okay, well, historically, it's not that we've made some intervention. We have done some tree planting in the past, so we do have some canopy of trees. But you see our area is very rocky. And so from our standpoint, it's not that we've built some attraction for people to come and see. It is the nature itself. So everything we do, we keep that in mind as far as preserving the nature. We're very interested in tourism as a sustainable effort, but we're in a unique position to shape what that looks like for our community. Historically, we are a tourism kingdom. Expats and Nigerians alike used to come because of our high elevations and cooler temperatures. So in the past, it has been a tourist place, but it's very exciting for us to be able to share Ososo to the world from a standpoint, again, of being able to shape what that tourism looks like. We can be conscious of the footprint that we're creating from a conservation standpoint. We can promote infrastructure that really fits into the landscape rather than sticks out from it. We like to talk about things like guiding traffic patterns, waste management, tourism districts, and things like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's give it up for her, please. Let me come to Dr. Carl here. So usually when someone from the global north, Caucasian like you, right? So make some kind of intervention in this African, some people usually look at it with some level of suspicion, that, oh, they've come to save us again, all right? They have come, the charity and the begging bowl, symbol and all that. But it is quite real. And so I will ask you, in what ways do you think, yes, the global north doesn't care. I mean, Africa is in their past, and they don't want to get into that space. But yet some persons are making some kind of interventions like you. So in terms of funding, for instance, is there opportunities where people like, your two panelists can tap into in the work that they do?
Thank you. I think that's a really important question. I think we have to be very aware, and I have to be very aware of the positionality and the standpoint from which we speak from, and to consciously reflect on and try to disown those traditions whereby white European men, it often would come to the global south and tell people what they should be doing and thinking and what the solution was. I see my research very much as speaking to other academics in the global north and potentially policymakers if they were willing to listen as well, in order to draw attention to the marginalization of perspectives from the global south and amplify the work of fantastic artists and creatives and activists in the global south. And I think it's important not to homogenize, right, as well. The global north is not one thing, just as the global south is. And so my students at university, the activists and social justice campaigners in Manchester, where I live, many of these are very committed to attempting to build international solidarity and global justice campaigns, and the experience of anti-apartheid activists in the UK and the prominence of those campaigns in the 70s and 80s were quite a big reason for why my career has taken the direction it has too. In terms of funding and partnerships, I think this is incredibly important, and there is interest and enthusiasm for institutions. Let me just speak about my own institution, the University of Manchester, for partnering with initiatives and projects in the global south. There is, as with all of these things, it's the tension we talked about earlier between the nice sounding words and then putting this into practice. The University of Manchester will talk a good talk about the importance of finding local partners in the global south. And then, as anywhere, the funding is not infinite. It's a very competitive process. And then once you get into that process, you realize the level of bureaucracy and the the blockages at every stage and actually putting those into practice. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of mutual partnership between organizations, but I do know of cases where that has been successful, and certainly there will be opportunities for that going forwards.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Which is exactly. Thank you. What Chief Asik actually referenced the other time about, the ability to source for help from those who ordinarily that helps you come. But it isn't coming. All right. So now, what about collaborations between and amongst organizations working in the fields that you do? I would like to come back to Ms. Chief Asika again. You do this, you have an office here, you have in Kenya, which means you have actually internationalized your operations, which means also that you have a greater chance of reaching other persons working in this space in South Africa, in Ghana, Senegal, wherever. How is it coming up in terms of collaborations with other organizations?
Well, collaboration is at the heart of what we do, because climate and environmental issues are inherently multi-stakeholder. And between Ajoba and Bandung, we make it a point to try and partner with as many local NGOs, community organizations, women's groups, like I said, government agencies, and also international institutions. Without collaboration with all these entities coming together, it's not going to work. There has to be collaboration. That's at the heart of climate action. Everybody must come together to do their own part. You need the communities. And like I said before, you need the women. You need the women to be at the forefront of climate action. They need to be the forebearers. You need support from the local organizations as well. And then obviously you need policy from government, and you need academic institutions, 100%. And you need also big organizations to help. Everyone has to do their bit. I mean, they're the ones who are really causing most of the damage. So everybody must come together. Collaboration is probably the most important thing to making climate action work. So your question was, how do we collaborate? We collaborate with as many people that are willing to collaborate with us, and you move from there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Please let's clap for her. So, Lady Uba, you plant trees, 6,000 trees so far. Could you walk us through the process? Who do you use in these efforts? Is it community people, or you pay people to help you to plant? And which specific areas would can I go tomorrow and see what you've done?
Thank you so much. When it comes to planting trees, we're not just planting because we want to plant. We plant for sustainability's sake. Sustainability is at the heart of what we do. And what that means is that when we plant, we go back to see what has become of the trees. And not only that, when we are planting, I say we are now, when we're planting, we have a group. I have a group. Incidentally, I'm the only woman. I don't know why we are so gender sensitive, but we haven't seen women come to us as volunteers, volunteers. We use volunteers. We also have community people where we do much of community engagement, and we also students are involved, because we know that children are at the heart of our future. And much that being said, I can tell you again that the way we plant is that we actually give these trees names. This uniquely. Yeah. When I plant, I can actually show you how we plant it. When we plant, because it's all about life, it's all about sustainability, it's all about earth. When we plant, we give it, you give it your own name, or you plant in memory of your late parents, or you plant in the name of the new child that you have had. And indigenous ways which we try to tackle climate change. I remember that in the village where I come from, they plant trees in the name of children, newborn kids. And when they do, you see that if all of us in this, from a village, and we all have kids, say in the last 2 years, and we have 2,000 people having kids, do you know the volume of trees that would have been planted in a community where you have 2,000 children in the last 2 years or in the last 2 months? So that is what we do. And because it is spirituality, I am not saying religion, spirituality, we are Africans. And when you give whatever you plant and you say, I bless you, it's blessed. What you cost is also cost. So you can put a tree side by side, cost this tree, and then bless this tree, and come back in the next 6 years or next 6 months and see what has become of the one you cost and the one that you blessed. So that's
Hold your thought there a little bit. I remember that, yes, this in this back, years back.
Yeah.
All right. When a child is born and they cut the umbilical cord,
Umbilical
it's
cord,
likely that they will plant an orange or
the name
other
of that
tree
child
or a
is-
mango. They may not
Yeah.
name the tree after the child, perhaps, but
Yeah.
I mean,
That's for the child.
which meant, in my view, that our ancestors
Yeah. They
knew
also
what
had a way
the importance of greening the
taking
environment.
Yes.
So
they
at
did.
what point did this disconnect or disruption
Yeah,
creep in?
we lost it when we began to live in a concrete jungle, I would say. When everywhere we build and then we plaster and we concretize everywhere. So we lost the greenery. And then we keep cutting down. Why do we cut down? Because we feel that these trees are old. But even when they are old, you can replant. And that's part of what we are doing. Even when you feel that these trees have become much of endangered species to people, or that they are beginning to endanger the buildings around it, you will need to replant. So like I was saying, we plant and then we go back, sustainability, we go back and then look at the trees, we prune, we weed, we engage people, especially the community. We engage them, and at the end of the day, you see that the trees are doing as much as they should. So we don't just plant, we plant for sustainability's sake. And again, like she was saying, I want to go back to that point. Until our people begin to see these climate issues as emergency, we are not likely going to do much. Until we begin to see it as that we are literally sitting on a keg of gunpowder, we are not going to do much. There's so much going on. And until we key into this and then begin to make efforts, not only planting trees, we need to live sustainably. Some of the areas that we need to work on are the plastic waste and our waste disposal efforts. We are the ones causing these problems. It is not the government. It is not the president. It is not just me. It is everyone's effort because it's a collective responsibility. And until we do these things and do it right, we will have a long way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, let's appreciate her. Let's go to our online panel member before we throw it open to the floor to make the interventions. We've just seen your community, ma'am, and then it's really beautiful with the hills and all that. I would like to come there to do some mountain climbing.
Yes.
Okay, so that is one community in Edo State, for instance. How can we replicate, or indeed, what you do there, how can we replicate it in other communities across both the state and even Nigeria as a whole?
Well, again, like I said, in our specific location, the nature is the tourist attraction. So I believe, Nigeria has such a diverse landscape. If you travel to the far northern areas, far southern areas, between the culture and the landscape, There's so much diversity within the country itself. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, please go.
Okay, so I think, you know, we've spoken a lot about the fact that you need buy-in from the communities. And that's what we really try to foster. You know, we've had films shot in our location because of the beauty. You know, again, I talked about historically, we've been a tourist place, but we're bringing in film crews. It's become a content creator's heaven just because of the view. So it's getting a lot of attention in a professional way. We encourage the arts to be there, but again, we have a chance to shape what that looks like. If we're inviting film crews in, we can sustain the economy of the place, right? So we get buy-in from the people because the messaging is there to tell them how they can make money from this. And then all of a sudden they're engaged because they're making a sustainable living. A film crew comes in, we now are talking about the hotels making money, catering businesses making money, tailors, day workers, tour guides, all of these things. So they start to see that an economy is forming and now they have a little money in their pocket. Now they're interested in protecting it. So it's a process. It's not in a day's work. We find it incumbent upon ourselves to make these issues known to government, as you're talking about. We never tell our citizens to wait on government, but we geographically are furthest from the seat of power. We're in the far, far north. So logistically, it's not easy to always be at Government House talking to the politicians, but we make it a priority to do so and carry the messaging to our community. You know, we found that the micro learning, the knowledge that we get based on being right in the kingdom itself is helpful to politicians who may not even visit our community. So we're able to both give them information about the nuances and consultants that may come in to do different projects. You know, communities are different. There's nuances, there's cultural things that need to be addressed or respected, I should say. So it's helpful for us to be on ground, have the micro knowledge and get the buy-in from the communities and partner that with the politicians that can sometimes help with the work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's appreciate her, please. And then I'm putting you on notice that Let the Earth Breathe, you know, is planning a festival of the environment and will likely come to us also to hold it. Your network is, you know, so
You're welcome. You're welcome. We'd be on.
yes. So yeah, time for interventions from this your turn. Our own Dr. Lukman.
Thank you so much. My stand-up seat or crouch.
Camera?
I would like to come to the camera. All right. But I want to face the panelists. I'd like to, beautiful place you have there, Mrs. Obaitan. Please invite me to come. I would come.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're most welcome.
We can't, I think we can't get bored with the issue of climate change. Whether we like it or not, we're all feeling the effect. Oh, I should stand here. All right, so I'm a panelist now, so. We're all feeling the effect of the climate change. But I have questions for all our panelists, well, apart from Mrs. Obaitan. My question to you is, when do you want me to come to your lovely place?
I'm here. You're welcome anytime.
I'm going to start with Dr. Calde, right? Thank you for your wonderful presentation. There has always been a dichotomy between the global north and the global south, particularly the extractive relationship between the two, you know, which brings me to my question. Now, doesn't this compromise your positionality, particularly when you have a broad view of this, you know, climate change in the global south, you know, as opposed to, because when it comes to globalization, the effect of global warming and what have you, you need, well, not really need, but you need to feel it amongst the populace so that you know, excuse me, where the problems are. Otherwise, like someone pointed out when you were giving your speech, the same syndrome of the savior, you know, is coming without actually getting to know what the people are feeling in terms of culture and the rest of it. So that's, you know, I'm talking about your positionality in your research. Sorry, I didn't get the name. Mrs. Chief Yasika. Asika. Okay, Asika. Lovely presentation, but what I caught, you know, in your first round of presentation is the fact that you said it's easier for you to do your business in Kenya as opposed to doing it more in Nigeria. Would you be able to identify some of the bottlenecks or intricacies so that then we can help to maybe contribute in our own way? And because we're holding talks, and whether we like it or not, some people are listening, you know, and some people may get an idea from there and then begin to tackle these. So that's a question to you. And sorry, ma. Huh? Mrs. Uba? Okay, Mrs. Uba, again, I want to thank you for your contribution, but I believe that, you know, for us to sustain this effort of planting trees, my friend and I were talking about, and then you mentioned it without even listening to us, about the cultural aspect of it. Or when you give birth, you name something, you know, name a tree or whatnot, and some people will feel, oh, because there is a spirit in it, you want to kill that tree. So there's also the cultural, you know, this is what I mean by, you know, you need to really understand that. But I know this has been ongoing for a long time, because way back during the Shagari era, we were talking about planting trees, and that really helped enough, to be honest. You know, if you go to Sokoto, because I was there for my youth service many moon ago, I could see the trees there, and they really are, you know, working. We just need to sustain the culture. But then the moderator asked you, and I don't know whether you answered the question. You didn't answer the question. Yes, so you understand the question. So that's it. Thank you very much. Please, as a panelist, you know.
Dr. Carl.
Great, thank you very much for that. That's a great question. Absolutely, the extractive relationship between the global north and the south is at the heart of the politics of climate change. And let's be absolutely clear, the primary responsibility for tackling the causes of climate change lie with the historic emitters in the global north, Europe and North America. The challenge for reducing the consumption of natural resources is almost, not entirely, but is almost entirely one that the global north has to confront. We simply consume far too many resources in the global north, and other parts of the world are not yet consuming enough resources to tackle poverty and development in their countries. I think in terms of positionality and I also, in questions of adaptation, how we adapt to the future of climate change, do apply to every society everywhere in the world in different ways is going to have to adapt to climate change. This is not my research, and this is certainly not what I'm saying, that I have really anything to offer to Nigerian politicians or society or activists, because you're right, I'm simply not embedded and at the grassroots of that culture. There are many people who are working in that area, and there are, whether what we think of those, we could have a debate about, but governments also have a responsibility to take the lead on that. This current research is about the role of arts and culture in critiquing broader assumptions and power relations. And I think, part of my main audience is other scholars and policymakers and activists in the global north, and arguing that they have, for example, when we talk about climate fiction, this is a booming body of literature, but still most of the authors that you hear about in global climate fiction are European and North American authors, whereas there's a lot of great African authors working on those. I think there is a perspective, whilst we acknowledge our positionality, there is then hopefully in spaces like this, these are moments where we can talk and learn from each other about our shared experiences. Actually, one of the fascinating things I found in some of the novels that I looked at, including by white South African authors who count themselves as African authors, we could discuss that. There is in a lot of climate fiction, there is a really important, there's a need to question critically the role that whiteness plays in climate fiction. A lot of anxieties about climate change in the global north sometimes could be interpreted as an anxiety that our rich, privileged, comfortable way of life is coming to an end. And that theme comes forward in quite a lot of climate fiction. And I think it's really important to shine a light on anxieties about the end of whiteness as a system of privilege. That is one of the areas that art can help us have a discussion about this.
Wow, that is quite incisive. And almost like what Chinua Achebe did with Things Fall Apart. So we're our writers who will write back to these white privileged writers of climate change, climate action. So let's come to you. Oh, that's you.
Okay, thank you for that question. I think your question was, what bottlenecks have we experienced in terms of why it's easier to work in East Africa, for example? Like I said, it really is $1 million question. I don't know why it's more difficult here or why it's easier over there in East Africa, in Nairobi, Kenya, East Africa, in general, actually. But I did say, and I do believe that it has something to do with the mindset of people here. If you are speaking as to government and why it's difficult to receive funding from them, I don't know. I guess they have bigger priorities. We're always in a deficit, apparently. And so when they're thinking about, I guess if I was in government, I'd be thinking about, okay, perhaps schools, medical, think about those things first before you think about climate change. And that's probably the mindset, is that climate change is not an important factor to factor into position. But like Mrs. Ubah said, it's very critical. So it's a mindset thing that's been a bottleneck. Also, not just mindset of people in government, for example, also mindset of people in the grassroots and the communities. Like I said, women, for example, we work a lot with women, women empowerment. They are thinking first how to feed their children, how to feed their family, how to take care of their family before they're thinking about climate change. So, which is why a lot of what we do in this area is to educate and create awareness. So, like I said, Joba Development Foundation did this, we had this initiative, this program called Women Trade Connect that debuted in Ilawo, Abeokuta, Ogun State. And what we did was we brought together a lot of women from about 10 different communities. And part of the program was to focus on climate change awareness. So when you, like I said, embedding environmental literacy into communities first, let them know what climate action is, what climate change is, how it affects them, and how they can economically benefit from it. Like Mrs. Olori Obaitan, yes, sorry, and I'm Yoruba, sorry. Anyway, when she talked about once people in the community realize that they can make money by protecting the environment, then they begin to buy into it. Yeah, they become incentivized. So the first thing is to educate them on what climate action is and how climate change affects them, and what they can do in terms of economic benefit. So, and we've seen there's been a shift. The impact is there has been a shift in mindset, and people are beginning to change the conversation. Conversations begin to change from seeing climate change as a problem to seeing it as an opportunity. So bottlenecks are, for me, I think, is mindset first from top to bottom. Yeah, yes. Thank you.
May I speak to that as well, if you don't mind?
Okay, please, yeah, you could jump in. Yes.
Yes, I would like to just speak to that on, everything she said is on point, and I really appreciate that perspective. And I would encourage, sometimes when you're changing the mindset, we go back to messaging, you do have to work with people who are doing it, right? You need to glean from them the successes they've had, what's working. And what I can, I'm going back to tourism, kind of tourism to the sustainability to get people to have buy-in. I look at Lagos State, what they've started with Dirty December. They've got it. They understand. They bring in a whole bunch of tourists. They're going to make a lot of money for their state. So it comes back to money for both the citizens and the politicians, I believe. So not that December, they're not concerned with sustainability, but they are concerned with that tourism aspect, all of the money coming into the city during that time. So the conversations can then be, okay, we want to make sure this continues. How can we expand it to other months during the year or more of a sustainable effort? And in order to have tourists coming all the time, you're going to need to have a clean city, an environmentally conscious city, things like that. So talking to communities, other countries, other African countries, places abroad that are already doing it and having success, partnering with them, using strategic relationships with them, visiting their countries, states, communities. It can be other states within Nigeria. I think it's important to build those relationships and start working together on that messaging, because we know, sustainability, nature, they don't know where we as humans draw our borders. It really affects all of us all over the world, like so many of us have said. So if we're going to rise, we can rise together, but you have to find the people that are going to be like-minded and just start where you are, start where you have the most sphere of influence and get people on board with you. That's all I have to add there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's come to you, Madam Uba.
Okay, thank you. Hello. Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. I think the asked and you asked at that time was where we have planted. Yes, I can tell you that our pilot edition was at Magodo, GRA, phase 1, and we planted in their median, and it's really doing well. As a matter of fact, when you go there now, you see people who would spread their mats and spread whatever they have in the scorching sun, and then take, because it has become a canopy of oxygen for them, right from the beginning to the end. And then we have planted in Warri, at Ogiedo Primary School, where the students were also engaged. Ogiedo Primary School is in Jedo in Warri. We planted with the Rotary Club International. And then here on the island, we have planted for several years. We have planted in Green Spring schools. We have planted in community school at around Ogombo. Yes, we planted at Ogombo. We planted at Ologolo. We planted at Aja, together with Rotary Club of Lekki Phase 1. We have planted, as a matter of fact, this year in June, because that was the World Environment Day, 5th of June. We planted simultaneously in Lagos and in Warri and Port Harcourt. We planted in communities there. We went back to Lekki, Magodo Phase 1 again. And what we did this year, like they were saying, economic sustainability. When you engage the communities, you also need to know that it is not just about planting trees, either ornamental trees or just trees for soil to prevent erosion. That's climate resilience. No, we had to plant what we call sustainable trees for them that will yield. So we planted fruit trees. And again, we wanted to also bring back the culture in a community where children will know how tangerines are grown, how mangoes are grown, how cocoas come to grow, because we lost it. At some point in this country, if you ask a 12 or 16-year-old child, how does How do you get cocoa? He doesn't know, because everywhere has become concrete jungle. Where they live in Port Harcourt and where they live in Delta, there are no places to plant. So we planted in my country home in the village. If you go there, you think that you're in Kenya. I don't want to sound immodest, but I think we planted quite a lot. And when we started, I just showed you, when we planted on the median from the beginning to the end, we have about 96 trees in a compound. And so during this dry season, it becomes more of a condition. Yeah. And during the rainy season, you need to actually use duvet. We don't use AC because of the kind of oxygen and because of the volume of air. And it is so beautiful. So you cannot stop talking about the benefits of tree planting for soil conservation, for resilience because of climate change and water and flooding. We need trees. There are all the benefits inherent in it. So those are areas and places we have planted. Until we begin to see this climate change and climate crisis as an emergency, we will not. But I can tell you that what we can do, you can plant in wherever you are, you can plant. And the moment we begin to light our candles in our different corners, the entire place will be illuminated. That's my message.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's start.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So this has really been an amazing session, and I have a question for Dr. Carl. And I think my question actually stems from some of the things that have been discussed here. So the moderator and Mrs. Uba had mentioned about the culture we had previously about taking care of our environment and sustainability practices that our ancestors would undertake. And this, she also posed to ask the question as in, we are not uncertain when this all stopped, when we didn't have this mindset anymore. And it also goes back to, I think Chief Sika had said that some of the difficulties in Nigeria can be traced to mindset, and how it's important that we need to change our mindset from the top to bottom. And it's really drew me back to 2022 when I first moved to Lagos. And I remember I have this practice where whenever I would go to a bar or anywhere else, I would always have my plastic bag with me, and I would tell them that, oh, I'm using like, what do you mean you're using your plastic bag? And I was looking like a mad person everywhere I would go in Lagos, because every time I was carrying my plastic. So
Wow, this is amazing, sir. Thank you.
So it's
great. I'm sure the tree has a name, right? Does it have a name, sir? Okay. Okay, please go on.
So I would often, like most people would question, oh, why was I carrying the plastic bag? And then I would have to start enlightening them on the issues we have in terms of like with plastic in Lagos, and they would be trying to understand it. But I realized that this goes back to what Chief Sika had said, how it's a mindset issue. It's almost like we aren't exactly conscious about these issues. And on my own, from my own perspective, I often believe that some of these type of issues are things that can be handled through the educational path, like how are our children conscious, like do our children know that plastic use is bad and we actually need to reduce it? Like, is there a practice where we are actually continuing and sensitizing these children? Because let's face it, 5 years from now, you know, children in secondary school, they're going to be in university, and after that, you know, they're going to remember things, values that they were taught in their secondary schools. So I would like to, my question now goes to Dr. Carl, like, being someone who's as someone who's lived in Manchester, what would you say the mindset is like? Like, how have children in secondary schools been trained and modeled to remember that it is essential that plastic is reduced and trees need to be grown? Because I think I schooled in the UK and I noticed something about some of my roommates, my flatmates, and some of them were always very conscious about, we had this 3 bins, and there was the bin for plastic, the bin for paper, and they were always very conscious about it. They were like, oh, you need to put that in the plastic bin, in the paper bin. And I really love this about them, because this showed that it was something that they had been sensitized. So I would like to ask, what's a practical ways that children here and people can be sensitized to change their mindset and view about the climate? Sorry, I hope that wasn't too late.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a great question. And it raises huge issues. There's some of the issues that we talk about in our classes and seminars on environmental campaigning, environmental activism, environmental regulation. There's a few things I would say. So there have been campaigns running in places like the UK for a really long time now around plastic bottles, waste recycling, reducing our consumption. There was first levies and then in some places bans on plastic bags from supermarkets. It is, I would say, I mean, it varies a lot by what area the geography of a town. Say, talking about university campuses where people are, by definition, higher educated, you don't see plastic bottles lying around on the street. However, I think that the crucial thing for me is that what does this do to people when you tell them, as environmentalists have done, that what you need to do is plant a tree, recycle, ride your bike, and then everything will be okay. And then the children who were doing this for the 20 years ago and are now adults, and then they're looking at what's happening in the COP this week, and climate change is still accelerating. Greenhouse gases rates have not been dented at all. Even the level of plastic pollution, the amount of plastic being produced in the UK is still going up. And so there's a real problem, I think, for the environmental movement, that it is about culture and individuals taking action. And this can have a really important effect on communities and the environments we live in, and how we relate to ourselves and understand ourselves as responsible people. But without systemic action to tackle the production of plastic, the profits that are being made by large companies who continue to benefit from the production of plastic, the reluctance of many governments to actually take action for reducing our consumption of disposable items, and I'm talking about the global north now. I think without that sort of action, continually urging people to take their own action is not enough, because then you hit a wall and someone goes, well, I've been washing out my jars and recycling them for the last 30 years, and unfortunately it turns out that the environmental crisis is still accelerating. And so I think there is a step beyond that of politicizing people and getting them to connect the global to the local, the changes they can make in their immediate community, in their environment, with some of the big systemic changes that are also needed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So here, right before us, is a practical example of, climate change action initiative. And our Pa Modupe Oduoye has something to say about it. Please step forward, sir. Pa Modupe Oduoye is actually a writer and publisher, one of those pioneer ones who does a lot of indigenous publishing in Yoruba language, So speak to us about this, why you brought this to us this afternoon.
Yeah. What does trees got to do with books? Writers eat, I hope. If I give writers mangoes, they will eat. Now, this.
Could you speak to?
for those who want to take one by one to go and plant somewhere. Oh, okay. So we were able to bring 3, from the first day. And if we get request, we'll bring the others tomorrow and so on and so forth, for people who want to take away. I mean, these are mangoes. There are, other possibilities like palm trees and so on at home. And a very good one, cinnamon. We actually brought some cinnamon leaves yesterday, and there are still some left there. If we have requests, we'll, bring them. My elder brother planted all this, 92 years old, and, in his yard. Where I live in Ibadan, in about the last 4 years, I performed an experiment and I named it, I live by Eden. The Garden of Eden?
I live by Eden.
Now, the name of Ibadan is Eba Odon, by the side of Odon. Odon in Yoruba has the consonants DN, the same consonants as in the Hebrew word Eden. Odon is grassland, savanna. The Yoruba says you can discover a savanna where you can find buffalo. They separate it from Igbo bush. Cattle rearing, that is elephant, you have to go to the Igbo. Before you can find a buffalo, you go to Odon. So Ibadan is Odon. I mean, Ibadan is the beginning of Odon, between Igbo in Lagos and so on here, and Savannah in the north. Yeah, now, if you check in the DN in Eden, it's also in another savanna. And so I performed this, I told myself I was going to perform this experiment by Eden. Can I survive in Eden in the 21st century?
And you did.
So now I told the car, you cannot come and take soil, which I need for food, for a roundabout for the car to move around in, and the car of visitors. So I blocked the gate, park your car outside. Within 2 years, I had, on the places where the tires used to sit, I had scent leaves, okra. Okra grew as tall as the bungalow roof. Cinnamon around its area. Now, avocado there. Here, grapefruit. Here, and at the back, and so on and so forth, all over the place. No more vegetables. I don't buy vegetables. I didn't buy vegetables anymore. So now, I won't talk for too long, but our lives, no trees, no life.
No trees, no life.
Luckily
Very
for
true.
us, luckily for us, trees are not competing with us. Animals compete with us for food. Trees and we can live in peace and symbiosis in this earth. They need carbon dioxide, which is dangerous for us. We need the oxygen, which they produce. That is not the same with animals. Animals are competitors with us for this survival thing. Trees are not. Green trees are not. So plant them around yourselves. You are living in symbiosis with these things. You give them, they give to you. Now, I'm going to suggest something. We bought a copy of a bottle of this here yesterday for 500 naira. I am going to suggest that these ones and the ones I'm going to bring, if you want them, is going to be 500 naira. Now, Anybody who says, I cannot afford it, anybody who says, I cannot afford it, we will give to him free. Huh? Then we will watch. Before Saturday, if we catch that sort of person going to buy soft drink with sugar and all that for 1,500, we say, you cannot afford mango, which in 5 years' time will be producing so many and will continue to do so for 500 years. You couldn't afford that, and you could afford this one, and you throw this one into the community to to pollute the community again. You say, okay. So it's just a symbol that we are putting a price on it. But anybody who does not want to pay the price, will give him what? Free. So,
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let's clap for Padre. It's an amazing, very amazing. And this is this particular example is a fitting way to bring our session to a marvelous close. And I would like to thank, express my immense appreciation to our panel members, starting with Dr. Carl Dev, who has been amazing all the way from Manchester. Let's give it up to him, please. Let's clap for him. And here to my left, Lady Josephine Uba of 1 million trees. In fact, we're going to multiply it to 20 million trees. And then also to Chief Asika, who has been amazing, doing amazing stuff in Nigeria and in Kenya, and of course, all over the world. And there over there on screen, our own amazing Mrs. Obiton, who is inviting the entire world to come to Ososo, to make films, to do video shoots, and amazing stuff. And we're coming there for Festival in the Environment. Thank you so very much for your time. And you have been an amazing audience also. Really, really appreciate it. Please clap for yourselves. Thank you. Thank you. My name remains Anoti Ajilwaro. Thank you.
Wow. Please, let's clap for them. Let's appreciate them. I'd like us to have a group picture. I don't know if TOJ is here and other members of the paparazzi group. Let's memorialize this fantastic outing. Please, let's appreciate them one more time. Yes. Pa Modupe Oduyoye, please join us. A veteran in all sense of the word. A veteran. I was going to say a wizard, because when somebody knows everything, the person becomes a wizard, right? So Pa Modupe knows practically everything, the different ethnic groups that constitute Nigeria, and even beyond, he knows everything. So yeah. Don't write me out of history. Wow. CEO at the Festival of the Environment, Ososo, Edo North.
Shut up, bro. Please, may I would like to know that the name of the national
Shut up.
anthem
Just shut up.
of the state of Israel is Al Tikwa.
Shut up.
Al Tikwa means there is hope. And you see, they got it from the thing, there is hope for a tree. There is hope for a tree. If you cut it down, it will grow again. So they chose that thing as their own national anthem. I hope we will make it the national anthem of your own family. Yep.